Hi everyone, thank you for joining us, and apologies for the technical difficulties we've experienced today. We appreciate you sticking around despite those issues. We are going to get started, so I will hand to our chair, Ms. Cara Laird.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. If you attended the pre-course meeting, it's nice to see you again. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. This is the first of our 3 Zoom sessions for all 3 cyber courses. So today's session is focused on seeing what real forensics processes look like. We are hoping this session will help you to understand how digital forensic analysis is conducted by the AFP in a way which maintains the chain of custody, because this has real implications for the conduct of a trial. The goal of the later Zoom sessions is to work through a realistic example of cybercrime occurring in the community. By working through a case study, we are hoping everyone who participates will gain a shared understanding of how police and prosecutors can work together to effectively gather and utilize relevant digital evidence. For example, the next session on 11th of October will be about investigations, and both the police and lawyers groups are included to help you build your understanding of the entire history of the case, from the initial complaint right through the conduct of a trial, if a matter progresses to trial. The final session will be on 25th of October and will be focused on trial proceedings, in addition to presentations from prosecution experts. We will work through the final part of the case study together. Now I would like to hand over to Senior Digital Forensics Examiner Michael James, who will present at this Zoom session. Michael James has over 35 years of experience in the field of information technology. In the past 10 years, he has specialised in digital forensics, working for both the Department of Defence and Australian Federal Police. His current role is a Senior Digital Forensics Examiner with the AFP's Forensic Command. Michael's presentation will last for about 40 minutes, give or take, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions or share any other thoughts afterwards. If you are interested in asking a question which occurs to you during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat box and we will make sure it is raised afterwards. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to share my screen so that I can play a video. Now, for your information, this video was recorded to give you a visual representation of the work or the processes that we go through from receiving an exhibit to doing our acquisition and then running through the verification or the consistency check process. This video has no sound. I will actually talk to it from my notes. So feel free to stop me at any time to ask a question. So the AFP receives an exhibit sealed in an evidence bag, sealed by an evidence sealing tape and a tamper evidence seal. On the back, we'll have a label or handwritten detail, and this is the promise number, the promise seizure number, or a description of the exhibit. The back of contents are photographed prior to opening to ensure that we have received an exhibit that has not been tampered with. Now, when I open a bag, I will typically try and cut the tamper evidence seal to ensure that we, as this shows that the bag has been opened for the removal of the exhibit. When I take the exhibit out, I place it on top of the bag, and again I will photograph this. This shows that the exhibit has been removed from the bag and that the exhibit bag has been unsealed. I will then commence my examination. I will photograph the top and bottom of the exhibit. This records the condition of the exhibit. And if you notice there, I've moved slightly to the side. This is because of reflections from the main screen. You can end up with your face in that reflection. This also saves being accused of damaging this particular exhibit or receiving it in a damaged state. Okay. Now, in the case of this particular phone, I know that the backing plate can come off as there is no SIM card tray or slot on the side. I will check to see if it is powered on, and in this case, you will see that it is powered on as it's come straight up to the screen. Typically, to access the SIM and other storage cards installed into a phone like this, will require removing the battery. I try and not do this until I have acquired all the data, just in case there is data in the cache or in memory. In the bottom of the screen, you'll see that it says swipe to unlock. So at this point, I will test the unlock procedure. In this case, swiping it up. Got ahead of myself. This is actually showing how the back comes off and then you can remove the battery. And also too, this particular area here highlights the reflective properties of the screen. Okay, so I have now slid the screen up, which indicates that there is no passcode used to unlock this particular device. If there was, well, you would either put the pattern in or actually enter the passcode onto the phone. Now, from this point, we will record all of the details of the phone. We will photograph all the screens, swiping left or right as needed. Now, the indications there at the bottom of the screen above the icons shows that we have multiple screens to go through. And you can see with me sliding left and right that I'm opening each individual screen. I just pointed out that there is the phone is in flight mode, and this will prevent any network access to the device, as there is the possibility of a wipe command being sent to the phone. Despite popular thoughts, Samsung phones have the ability to be set up to wipe, to remote wipe, similar to an iPhone. And again, I'm pointing out the different screens or the notification of the fact that there are 3 separate screens on this phone. And these are the apps that are typically displayed. So all apps, all the installed apps will be visible on these screens. The user has the option to select what apps are displayed on the main screen. Photographing the main screen and these screens gives you, number one, the full list of apps, but number two, the apps that the user is most likely to be using the most or have more interactions with. So this is where I go into the settings. I'm just going to pause for a sec. This is where I go into this to the settings for the phone. But I did fail to mention that I highlighted WhatsApp on this screen. So these apps, WhatsApp or other chat applications, are a very, very good source of data, especially if you're looking at some sort of collusion with other people or people sending out information that is relevant to your investigation. So now I'm going into the settings, and in the settings I will record the phone details, both by photography and in writing, which I will show you shortly. Now, about this device, clicked on my device. If you go right to the bottom on, typically if you go right to the bottom on an Android, so under more, I've gone down to about this device. This is where the primary identifiers are stored. Serial number and the IMEI, which is the International Mobile Equipment ID. These are photographed and you can see I've highlighted there with my pen that the IMEI. These are the particular details that are recorded. The IMEI is unique to every single phone, so it can be used as a primary identifier for this device, as well as the serial number. Recording such details as the device name is also relevant, or can be very relevant, because it then could identify the owner of the device. Now we're going to identify the date and time format. The main reasoning for this is to check whether the phone is current, or whether the time is current, and whether the phone is set to auto update. This is important because if the time is out of sync, it will have an effect on the evidence you want to rely on. You will need to calculate the correct time to ensure that items you have identified are actually evidence that relates to your investigation. Now, another way to confirm the IMEI is to use the phone's keypad and type in *#06#. This will automatically display the IMEI, or both the IMEI and the serial number, depending on the device. If the phone has a second IMEI for an eSIM, this will also be displayed. The IMEI, pause this for a sec. The IMEI will be the first 15 digits displayed. Samsungs are known for adding numbers at the end. In this case, this is a 4. My personal phone has a 49. iPhones tend not to, and only display the 15 numbers of the IMEI. So now we have photographed the device and found information about the device. Now we need to record those details. Now the AFP has moved to an electronic system, but we still use our older paper forms when required. And for this demo, I have used the paper form. So, with the recording of this detail, I'm recording the promise number, the date, the service request number. We will then start going down and recording details as in the SIM, the IMEI, the serial number, etc. for the phone. We will also identify whether the phone's time and date is set to automatically update, and we will also record the current date and time against a known source. In our case, we will use, or I use, time.is. This is an application you can use on your own phones, and this gives you an exact representation of the date and time in your current location. Time is synced to an atomic clock, which means that it is one of the most accurate applications that you'll find. Another option, of course, is to use your network, your phone network time, as this is also quite accurate. My process for this is to record the time is screen with the actual date and time on the evidence phone, and this shows that there is either a difference or no difference. Now, if in this particular instance, waiting for this particular form process to be finished. This is again where I'm recording the IME. This is actually quite a bit of a process that you will have to go through, but it is very relevant, especially when you have to present this information in court. Now, the boxes that I'm ticking in that particular instance on this form, there is an indication at the very bottom that states to tick in the box if this data is recorded in another method. In this particular instance, I'm recording it in a photograph. So I'm handwriting it, and then I'm corroborating my handwritten notes with a photograph. Now, recording the details of the SIM. I know that there is no SIM in this phone, and if you don't and you haven't checked because you can't remove the battery, leave the SIM section in this and fix it up when you have finished your acquisition. Typically, a SIM card will have some numbers printed on it. Mostly, those particular numbers are a partial ICCID, which is the identifier supplied by the service provider, the phone provider. This is what we could use to record the identifier for that particular phone. This is going back to how I organise my time and date check. And I seem to have an issue with the sound out of the video, and I do apologise for that. So in this particular instance, the date and time shown on the phone only shows a day and the date and the month. So I've actually gone back through my calendar and I've looked for that particular month for each year to find the day, that particular date, that particular number of appeals, and then I can use that as the year. So in this particular instance, you can see that I've written down 5/5/2022, which is the same, that is the day that that particular day, that is the year that that particular day appeared on the 5th of the 5th. Okay, so can I get an indication if you can hear the sound off the video? I've just made some changes.
Michael, I can hear the sound.
Thank you. Now I'm just going to stop here for a moment. The wording is actually quite important. The use of available states that you haven't acquired everything. There is data, example, used by the bootloader to start the phone up, that is not acquired. Oops, Daisy. So sorry, that just changed on me without, I wasn't very prepared for that. I am sorry.
Michael, it's Lauren from AGD. Apologies. Is there meant to be sound at the moment? We're having a bit of trouble hearing it.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. What's up?
Oh, we were just wondering, is there meant to be sound with this part of the video, or are we just watching? Sorry.
Oh, okay. I did have the sound turned on, and obviously I've got a feeling you can't hear it.
Yeah, no, sorry, we can't hear it. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right. So basically what I've gone through is, and I do apologise for the fact that the sound's not coming through. This is another glitch from today. What I've just gone through is the verification of the consistency of our acquisition. So I've just completed a check of the three contacts that exist on the phone. The contacts include, and I will take it back, as you can see, we have mobile phone number, we have email address, but there is also an indication, if I bring this back, there is an indication of a chat application, which is WhatsApp. This shows that there is a WhatsApp account associated with the particular contact that you would be looking at. I've checked the phone number off the phone and what's been acquired, and I have for each individual contact, and this is what I've recorded on my form. As you can see, for other entries, this is where I would mention about WhatsApp. There is no WhatsApp for that particular contact for Michael Hawker. This is also shown on the phone. So when you have a look, you've got the phone number, you've got an email address, and then of course you've got connections. Connections is where the WhatsApp detail will appear. The generic contacts that are listed, so Message Bank, International Message Bank, etc. We don't worry about those because they can be consistent, and a lot of times they will be acquired through the SIM card that's actually part of the phone, if the phone was acquired with the SIM card attached. Now we're going to go through and we're going to look at images. So this again is another part of the verification or the verification consistency process for these acquisitions. You'll note that we have a lot of icons and a lot of other generic type images that appear. These will appear because they're part of an app or part of the phone. Typically, they don't have metadata. The metadata identifies what application, what photo camera was used to take a particular photo. As you can see here, we have one image. It does have metadata, so it's a Samsung. It was either taken with using a Samsung and copied to this phone, or it was taken from this phone, which is where the metadata comes from. So if you have a very large list of images to go through, my suggestion is to look at whether you've got metadata associated with a particular device, with a particular image. This indicates that it is not generic and it is not being supplied with the device by either the provider of the device or the apps that are downloaded to it. As an example, icons or emojis used in messaging and other apps. So in this particular case, I've gone looking for images. There is no images in DCIM. DCIM is where, if you take a photo with the camera, that's where they'll be stored. You can see here I've now gone into download, and I've located a file that has actually been downloaded to this device. I'm looking at the details, which is the name. I'm also looking at the size and the modified date and time. When we go back to the main screen on the GTAC laptop, we can see that it's a wallpaper. We can see, number one, that we've got the size of the image on the right-hand side. As I go through and slide this across, but we also know that it is a wallpaper, and you will also recognize that image as being on the background of the phone when we photograph the apps. The path, this shows where on the Samsung the file is. So in this particular case, it's given the file name. So when I click on it, I get the full image. And we can then compare the image, as you can see by bringing the phone up. Both images are the same. So now we go down and we'll have a look at the detail for it. Now for the final part of the integrity verification of this acquisition, we're looking at messages. Now there are 6 messages listed, 5 messages listed. They have their timestamps, they have the to and from, and they have the body of the message. This is what I can compare off the phone. Now, as I stated earlier, I typically do 5 of each. So in this particular instance, I will look at all of these particular messages. If your message body, I'm just going to stop here, pause here. If your message body is quite large, Cellebrite has that ability that when you put your mouse over the field that holds that message body, it should show the entire message body, as you can see on this particular screen. Now, this is from the SIM card service provider or the phone service provider, and you can see that it is quite detailed with a lot of other information. So all I've done is just put my mouse over the top of that field, and it's displayed all of that information without having to expand on the field. So you can see that I've gone in, and you can actually see how big the message body actually is. The comparison is the date and time, and of course the content of the message. Again, if we click on or highlight the message in the details on the right-hand side of the physical analyzer, you'll see that it'll actually give you the entire detail as well. The date and time that the phone was, that the message was looked at. Also take note of the status. The status shows that this message has actually been read by the person who's looking at the phone at the time. This is now looking at the second message in the list. And as I said, we go through and we will check, or I will check 5. Some digital forensics examiners do it differently. I have seen members who will do 7 or 8. I've also seen members that will do the first one, the last one, and then random in between. For me, I will do completely random for the entire verification process, or the consistency verification process. So the detail in regards to the phone number it was from, that will be displayed. If it's from a contact, obviously the name of the contact will be displayed on the phone. And as you can see from the detail on the right-hand pane of that, of the screen, you'll see that the from shows the phone number, but it also shows the detail of the contact. And now we're going in and we're going to have a look at our WhatsApp chats. Now, typically WhatsApp or a lot of these chat messages from an Android, it can be very difficult to get. It is becoming better, but the older phones can have issues displaying it. iPhones are much easier to get that sort of data from. What we can see here is that we have one chat to review. So we will review the entirety of it, as we do with all others. I'm highlighting the chat message body, the reply, which shows a time, and of course the date of the actual thread. Now, as you go along and you add more messages, that date will change. And at the top of each message thread, you'll see a date. It'll have all of the messages. When you go to the next date, the new date will appear, and then all the messages. So they're grouped by date. In this particular, you can see that we're looking at the participants. So we have 2 participants. We have the messaging. Now, typically the messaging on the right-hand side, I'll take this back a second. If you look at the format that is displayed on the screen, you'll see that you've got the green on the right-hand side, you've got the blue on the left. Typically, the way this is all set up, the right-hand side will be the owner, or from this device. The left-hand side will be the other participant or the other participants that have been sending messages. So it's exactly the same. It's in exactly the same display format as you would see on the messaging app itself. Now, we'll hold this. Okay, so we've completed verification of the integrity. Now, you would have noticed that I didn't show you actually doing a complete acquisition. This is because I have been advised that the members have completed their Celebrate training and already know how to do an acquisition, so I'm not going to repeat that particular process. You would have also noticed that I used a GTAC laptop, which is supplied through Celebrate. These particular devices are used throughout various police stations in the Australian Capital Territory, where the AFP actually has a local presence. They are also used by various specialist units in the regional offices, which are in the main headquarters areas around Australia and the capital cities. At this particular point, we're turning the phone off. We've actually finished our examination of the phone, and we've actually finished our review. I'm just taking this back we're actually finished with our review of the exhibit itself. We've acquired the data. We've confirmed that the data or the acquisition is viable, which means it's usable. And we've also confirmed that the data from the phone and the acquisition match. Now, obviously, we can't match everything. We would be there for quite some time. But the integrity of the acquisition has been confirmed, and we can put that into our case notes. Because we've finished with the phone, we'll power it off. What we will do after we've powered it off, we will record the time that we've powered it off into our notes. We will then reseal the exhibit in the bag. Once resealed, I will transfer to the registry. Just pause there for a sec. Transfer it to our exhibit registry for storage until needed, returned to the owner, or destroyed, depending on what the court's determination is. The data itself is then acquired, or the destination of the acquired data, in this particular instance, was to a Samsung portable SSD. As displayed there, it shows up, it can hold up to 250 gig of data and will be stored away as the main source of truth in regards to the evidence. A working copy of the data will then be made available for review and the search of evidence. Now, I've highlighted or showing the entire form in this particular instance. This is a much better look at the form, and I'm now going to go through, considering I had sound issues, and I do apologise for that. You'll see at the top we've got the case reference number. That's our promise number. Service request number. So if we have a specific request number that's associated to this, we would record it there. I did mention before about the box we used to tick. So please complete the details below and or mark the box if the information was recorded via other media or records. So I did mention that if I take a photograph of the settings and it shows the IMEI and the serial number, I'll actually tick those. I've got seal reference. In the next section, you'll see that it's got the seal on there. I did take a photograph of it, so I will tick it. You can actually see as we go further down, I've made my description. It's a Samsung S4, no visible damage. We typically do that, and this is why we photograph it. We can show that there was no damage to the phone when we took it out of the bag, and when we return it to the bag, I'll photo and it's sealed. I'll re-photograph it with the exhibit on display, and that shows that the exhibit went back into the bag and was sealed in exactly the same state. Passcodes, you can see that it was NA, we didn't have one. Date and time check, yes. What was the reference source? In this case, it was time.is. I did describe that earlier. The reference date and time, so that's from the TimeIs app, and then the device date and time. And then you can then use that to calculate any differences for your data. The IMEI, yes, we know that the IMEI is correct. I've confirmed that with what I've already written down. The version of the UFED for PC that I used is also recorded. This is important because in the future, if there is an update to the Celebrite application or the UFED application that changes how the data is acquired, your data was acquired with an earlier version, and you must record this particular information because of the consistency of your evidence. This may not go to court for a number of years, and there'll be many updates in between. You can see there where I've got my comparisons, where I've compared the 3 contacts. I've written 3 contacts again, but it was actually 3 messages. Now you'll note that I have initialed the crossout. It's a single crossout. I haven't tried to scrub it out. You can still read what's behind it, but I've initialed it and I've dated it to show that I crossed it out on that particular date. If this goes to court and you haven't done that, you could be asked, why are you changing your data or changing your notes? In this particular instance, it's on exactly the same day that I've recorded it. It's a simple mistake. Instead, I've got 1 image, 1 WhatsApp message. You also see that 1324, I powered off the Samsung phone. Further down the form, we detail where the data is, or the source of truth. So this is the main lot of data that is not going to be previewed or worked on because we don't want to lose it. So it's a Samsung SSD, as I mentioned. The model is a T5. I've got the serial number, and I've also photographed it. Results saved to a file. In this case, it's a UFD file because that's what Celebrite creates. So it's a UFD. Oh. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what UFD stands for, but it is a data file. Now, the T drive you'll see there, that relates to our evidence network. So all AFP members or investigators who have access to review data will go on to our evidence network, or EON, and that's where the reference for T is. Typically what we'll do is the T drive will be followed by a folder name, which will be the promise number and either the POI or the offender's name or the operation detail. And at the end of the form, we'll put in our name, your AAP number, and sign it and date it. This then becomes an official record. So it becomes a part of the Archives Act, which means that we have to store this somewhere. So paper notes will go into a paper case file folder. With our electronic system, it's stored in our electronic notes. And there is an audit procedure for our electronic system so that any changes made are then shown if someone wants to look at the audit records and say, well, okay, you made this change, why did you do it? This is where we come back to, why do you make changes in systems? So this is the end of the form, put my name, my number, and then a signature. Now, the reviewer on that, depending on, okay, I've stopped sharing. Can you see me now? Yep. Okay, so again, I must apologise for the sound issues I had then. I think I was going to try and test all of this with Lauren before we had the previous issue with the meeting. Going back to that form, the reviewer, so we have members who are under training. Those members are required to have their case notes reviewed by their supervisor. Now, it's not a supervisor for their entire training process. The supervisor is for that particular task. Each member or each trainee goes through and has multiple supervisors as they work through their casework authorisation. In that particular instance, because I am casework authorised, I would have crossed that out. So do we have any questions?
Thanks so much for that demonstration, Michael. It's always really thorough and we appreciate all the detail. And yes, it would have been great to test it if we had not sent out the wrong Zoom details somehow. We're just going to see if anyone would like to put any questions in the chat, but while we're waiting, I was wondering if you could just let everybody know, just for background, what PROMIS is, please.
PROMIS is the police records online management information system. PROMIS is where all of the case details go through, people's criminal histories are searched through PROMIS, vehicle details are searched through PROMIS. If someone reports a crime, the details are added to PROMIS, and then that generates a case, and then we can go through, or the investigator will go through and add their information to that. Who they've spoken to, what suspects, what exhibits they've seized, and that's all related to what we do.
Okay, great. So it's kind of like a central case management system.
Database, yeah.
What he does.
Yeah.
And has anyone, no? Please do feel free to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Michael is a very experienced digital forensics examiner. So if you'd like any of the terminology that was used in the presentation explained, please let us know. Because I'm not a forensics expert, I'm going to ask a question in the meantime, which is, if you could explain for us, Michael, what a cache or cache is on a mobile phone and the common types of files that are stored there for everyone.
When you're using your mobile phone and you open a particular application, you're looking at a file, that file can be cached into memory, but it can also be cached in other areas on the phone, and what we call volatile memory. So when you turn a phone off, the volatile memory is wiped. You turn it back on and everything that was cached is actually removed out of that memory. Now it's put into that area specifically to make it faster to retrieve. If you go from one part of your app to another and then go back to that image, it'll be faster to retrieve instead of having to work on it again.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So it's kind of a temporary storage.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I gave you an overly technical answer, so I apologise.
Well, that's no, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's why we're here. Would anyone else like to ask a question? I'm just peering at our laptop we're using to operate things. John, Jenny Bayer, Simon, please do feel free if there's anything you'd like to know, or Anna. I mean, it was a very thorough presentation. Hello.
Hello.
Is that Anna?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How's my sound? Do you hear me or?
Yep.
No. Okay. I have a issue of from here. Because we have these Celebrite tools that we have been offered by the AFP last year, 2023, while we are attending cybercrime training. But the problem is our tools are still not in operational because we have it's expired its license. So we have been waiting for the AFP to assist us in this case. So we have been not working with our Celebrite tools for more than 3 months now. And we have new cases now that we need to work with these tools. That's for your information. Yeah.
I fully understand. The International Forensic Engagement Team, we've got some members on leave, and we've also got another member who's actually on a rather large job. What I can do is, which police service are you from?
Kiribati Police Service.
Right. What I'll do is I'll liaise with Lauren. I will have a chat to our international forensic engagement team, and then we'll see where it's up to and what's happening, and then we can take it further from there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks to Kenny Bayer. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Yeah, I've just written it down.
Moira, I might have had a question as well. Oh, we might be having some sound
can you hear me?
issues.
Can you hear me? Okay, I just
Yep.
had a question. So once you access the phone, if they have encrypted apps or encrypted files on the phone, what do you do in those circumstances?
Well, that actually, it comes back to, it depends. If you've got access to the phone, most of the apps should allow you access unless they've been logged out. So that's number one. So if you can access say something like WhatsApp, you can get in and you can see all of the messaging. If you come across something like secure folder, which is encrypted, and it requires another passcode to enter, then you would have to look at using some of your powers. So in Australia, if we have a Commonwealth warrant, we have a section of the Commonwealth Crimes Act where we can, called a 3LA, the letters L and A, where we can compel the owner of the device to give us all and every assistance to access this particular area. So then we can use the passcodes that they provide to access any encrypted area. If the file itself is encrypted, there are some options for decryption. We do run through those options in a separate system. So we'd be looking at something like running Hashcat or another sort of password or decryption process. But as much as possible, we would try and get the owner of the device to give us the passcodes. But we do have other options for that.
Yeah, so this is Damien Breach here, also from Digital Forensics. Just want to add to that. If you do come across, say, encrypted communication apps, let's say even common ones like Signal or Telegram, and if you're able to access them during your examination, so if you do have access to those communication channels during your examination, so you have the PIN code, it's always good to acquire those messages through screen capture or whatever you can at that point in time, because those applications may not be acquired later via Cellerite capabilities. That's a might. So if you do have access to somebody's phone and you open up Telegram and it automatically logs you into Telegram, it's worth trying to capture those off the screen while you can, again, because you may not be able to capture them later. This is a case-by-case basis. But as Michael says, if you don't have a PIN code, it's going to be very, very difficult. And that's why we do in Australia, through Commonwealth legislation, we can request assistance. And that assistance is through the 3LA order. And that assistance can be provided by giving a PIN code. But again, just remembering that sometimes when you're live on a phone, that may be, depending on the type of application or the type of data, that may be your only opportunity to access that data. So if you are worried about the preservation of encrypted data, it can help just to take some photos of chats or take a video of those chats while you're previewing the phone. And then if you do happen to get it sometime later, then it doesn't really matter that you've got 2 copies of it. So just be aware of sometimes it is a one-off opportunity.
Thanks, Damien. That's helpful and interesting. Are there any other questions? And if not, we might just launch a quick poll if you don't mind sticking around. We can always pass on any additional questions to the International Forensics Engagement team, but please do speak out. So we have two questions that we're hoping that everyone who's attended today's cyber session could just answer to provide some quick feedback on the session. Our apologies for the technical issues. We will do our best to not let that affect the remaining two sessions, but we're just going to launch a quick question now. And if everyone could provide their feedback, that would be much appreciated. Oh, actually, there are two questions. So those polls should be live now for everyone to view. And hopefully yep, okay, the answers are coming through. So it does seem to be working, unlike many of our technical features today. Thank you very much for your answers. We will use this to improve what we offer and what we assist PILON to deliver in the Cybercrime Working Group. Okay, we're just wrapping up that poll, so please do feel free to provide your response if you haven't yet provided it. Okay, thanks everyone for your feedback. And we appreciate you taking the time to attend today, given the issues that we had with the delay in beginning. So I'd like to thank our forensics experts, Michael and Damien, who has joined us today from the International Forensics Engagement Team, and Michael from Forensics Command. Our next Zoom session will be on Friday, the 11th of October, and will be a tutorial session on investigations and identifying digital evidence in particular. So please do come along to that if you're free on Friday, the 11th of October. And that'll be a bit of a longer one at about 2 hours, but there will be group work, and I'm happy to announce that Mr. John Peacock from New Zealand Department of Internal Affairs will be facilitating that session. So thanks again. We do have a little bit of an extra extension of today's session. If anyone present has been having login issues, I know some of you have been in touch with us, but if you wouldn't mind staying online for a few minutes, we'll just have a chat to you about the specific issues that you're experiencing, and then we will speak to Zyber and work out a way to get you into the online platform. So thanks again for joining, and I hope you have a very nice weekend, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time.